It is 51 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Ursula Royteen.
From Puyallup to Pinehurst, this is KIRO Radio, 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Oh, man, do we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. I am telling you, my cup runneth over. Welcome to the big show. Coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio and streaming on Facebook Live. Let's get right into the big lead.
The Big Lead. Top story.
Did you see this Q13 video?
Which one? No.
Oh, my goodness gracious. 13, Brandy Cruz is a good friend. David Rose is a friend. Sure. I think they have a lot of great journalists, and I think they do a lot of great work. And I don't think the acts of one staffer reflect the news operation there, because I think they do a really good job there. So our friend Todd Herman over on KTTH broke this story yesterday that they were running a promo of Donald Trump's Oval Office address. And in the promo, first of all, they make Donald Trump about 12 shades of orangier.
No way.
Yes. And then they have a video that you can get on My Northwest, side by side, of what the president said and what Q13 put in the promo. And the words match up exactly until Donald Trump licks his lips after saying a few words for about a quarter second. In the Q13 promo, Donald Trump, his tongue comes through his mouth slowly, like he has, like a lizard, like a lizard with dementia.
Okay, again, this is on a promo.
A promo that aired on Q13.
Did it air more than once, or was it a?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
I have not seen
one of Todd's listeners, who's in law enforcement, caught this, and they put the side-by-side videos. And you see Trump's tongue come through his mouth very slowly, and then they loop it, and it comes out of his mouth again. And it was literally about a quarter second, just it was licking his lips in real life. But in this Q13 video, it made Trump look demented. It also looks like, Todd talked to some video experts, it looks like they digitally distorted his mouth and side and part of his head. So this
for sure ran on Q13.
Oh,
this is
my! Believe me, Ursula, because yesterday Todd's show reached out to Q13, and Erica Hill is the news director there, and everything I know about her is terrific.
Absolutely.
And she said, "This does not meet our editorial standards, and we regret if it is seen as portraying the president in a negative light." And then about 2 hours ago, we got another statement from Q13's news director. "We've completed our investigation into this incident and determined that the actions were the result of an individual editor whose employment has been terminated."
Well, there you go.
So first of all, good for Q13. They acted decisively, and they fired the person involved. But I will tell you that this is just a fact of so much of what's going on these days, that there are some people, I mean, this guy, or I don't know if it's a man or woman, the editor, this person hated the president of the United States so much they were willing to put their career on the line. Their hatred for the president trumped them earning a paycheck. And whether people want to accept it or not, there are people in TV stations and radio stations and newspapers and every other industry in our country today, not just the media. There are people with such deep-seated hatred of this president that they are willing to lose their job over it. And if people don't understand that this is coloring, in this case literally, if this is coloring how things are being presented, you're delusional. And again, Q13, this does not reflect on them as a news operation.
And I want to emphasize, too, I mean, as long as we're pointing out it does not reflect on them as a news organization, and I don't think it reflects the news organizations as a whole.
No,
I mean, that is just...
I know that there are people in every news organization who have personal hatred. I know that there are people here who have personal hatred for the president.
Alter?
No. I'm just telling you that there are people in every industry who are willing to have a distorted perspective.
And do you think that's something unique to this particular president? Or
yes.
Do you think that's with every in every
It
presidency?
is 100 times, maybe 1,000 times more with this president than anyone who has preceded
what
him.
you've described, and I'm glad that Q13 wasted no time in ending that person's career, but that is despicable.
Yeah, it is. And so go to mynorthwest.com, and you can see the video, the distorted video that made the president super orange and look like a lizard sticking his tongue out a couple of times, when the actual video, it was a quarter-second lick of his lips.
I mean, who has the time?
That's another thing. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea how this went down, but I just find the entire thing to be reflective of such a level of personal animus towards this guy. And look, at the bottom of the hour, I'm gonna go through his sound bites from this morning, where he blatantly lies. I will call out Trump as a liar. I wish that everyone else in the media would call out how Schumer and Hillary and Obama are liars right now about the border wall. But I will see things fairly. I feel like not very many people do that. I've not heard too many people point out the hypocrisy and the lies from Chuck Schumer, who used to support a border barrier and now is adamantly against it because of who the president is. And yet, when Trump lies, which he did this morning, I'll play that for you at 12:30. I'll call it out. But I'm also going to call out both sides. But right now, we are seeing an attack from the media against a president of the United States that is unprecedented. Now, it's not a conspiracy, and Channel 13 did the right thing. They got rid of this guy. But there are people like that in every single industry these days, and their judgment's distorted. And sorry the guy lost, a man or woman, don't know. Sorry the person lost their job, but if you're willing to have your judgment so distorted by personal hatred for somebody, then you get what's coming to you. Next up, in the big lead.
The big lead. I told you so.
When school district at the beginning of this school year, I told you it was not sustainable. I told you that within 1 year in many districts, within 2 years in all, that they would not be able to sustain these pay raises. And we are now starting to see the results of that. Down in Vancouver, Washington, they have announced an $11.4 million budget deficit for the coming school year, and they say salary deals with teachers and support staff are partly to blame. And so now they're going to have to make program and staff cuts in light of the expected deficit. And this is a case where the naked greed of the teachers union, and we talked about this, in some districts, teachers are making $80,000 a year and got a massive raise on that. They were making way more than the people who live in their district for a 70% job, time-wise, with all the time that they get off. It's a 70% job. And because the teachers union was so nakedly greedy in its ambition for these, screwing over the taxpayers, but not only the taxpayers, the students, the kids that they purported. When they go on strike, they always say it's for the children. And then we find out they have to make program cuts now because of it. This is the canary in the coal mine, the Vancouver School District announcing this, because this is going to happen in every district in the state. So what's the response from the school district? Well, one of the school board members would not even vote for dealing with this budget crisis because she said, I'm afraid it's going to reflect poorly on the teachers' union. Well, yeah, that's because the teachers' union decided they would rather get an unrealistic bump in salary than keep programs that are there for the kids. And so she says the problem is with the legislature. They're not getting enough money from the taxpayers. Now, that might be a huge surprise to you. If your property taxes have gone up $1,000, $2,000 more the last couple of years because of schools, you are paying a massive tax increase to pay for these teacher salaries. And it's not enough. So now they're going to have to do one of two things. Cut programs within every school district, or their preferred option, raise our taxes to pay for, and down in Vancouver, for example, their average teacher's making about $60,000. The average salary is about $50,000. So people who are earning less are going to have their taxes raised to give more money to somebody who works 70% of the year. Does that make any sense at all? That we're going to have individual family budgets screwed over? But that's now going to be the rallying cry. The legislature has to fix this. The legislature has to raise taxes. We had the superintendent of public instruction come on my show and say that he wants an income tax in our state to pay for these teacher salaries, because even though we're spending more in taxes, we're spending more on teachers than ever before. They got massive raises. And he says, no, we need an income tax now so we can sustain these raises. This was, and I am doing a big, huge, fat I told you so. This was a royal screwing of the taxpayers by the teachers' unions in this state. They knew it wasn't sustainable. They knew that they were going to lead to budget deficits. And now it's starting to come home to roost. So much more to come on this one. Next up in the big lead.
The Big Lead, Bizarro World.
I did a story 6 months ago about a guy who just gets shuffled from one city department to another here in Seattle. Back in August of last year, what was that, about 6 months ago? Fred Podesta. Mayor Jenny Durkin announced that Fred Podesta will direct the work of the navigation team at Human Services Department and oversee expanded outreach to deal with the homelessness crisis. I want to know, what kind of background does this guy have? What kind of expertise does Fred Podesta have to deal with the homelessness crisis? And by the way, Fred, bang up job. I never see a homeless person on the streets around here. Kudos. So I wanted to know, what's this guy's expertise? And so I looked into his background. Well, 2.5 years ago, the accused child rapist mayor at the time, Ed Murray, he made Fred Podesta the head of the Finance and Administrative Services. Oh, no. Fred had been the head of Finance and Administrative Services. And then Ed Murray named him Director of City Operations. So he was going to be Ed Murray's liaison to city departments. Well, guess what? 6 months after his last bureaucrat job in the city, Fred Podesta just has been named the new Chief Operations Officer of the Seattle School District. Now, let me tell you a little bit about becoming an expert in anything. It takes time. When I started doing a radio talk show, I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue. I know a lot of you are saying, you have no clue now. I'm pretty good at my craft now after 25 years because I've worked really hard at it. You can't become an expert in something if all you do is move from one city bureaucrat job to another. But that's what's going on in Seattle. The accused child rapist, he added 1,600 city employees, just bureaucrats, who make, on average, 6 figures, $100,000 a year. But this guy, Fred Podesta, what does he have to be chief operations officer of the Seattle School District? You go from the head of finance and administration, then he becomes the liaison to city departments, then he becomes the point person for homelessness, then he becomes the chief operations officer of the Seattle Public Schools. Let me read to you this insane press release from the Seattle Public Schools. Following a nationwide search, netting many highly qualified applicants, Seattle Public Schools has hired an outstanding individual to become our chief operations officer. Fred Podesta brings years of experience to the district, having served the city of Seattle in several leadership roles. The guy's had 5 jobs now in the last 2.5 years that are only vaguely related to each other. You can't be an expert in anything other than being a bureaucrat, which is what government is about. They feather their own nest. They take care of each other. And by the way, I saw the job posting for this. He was making $195,000 a year with the Seattle Department of Finance and Administrative Services. They said the top salary for this chief operations officer job is $216,933. So I'm sure he got the top end because he was making $200,000 in his last job. No wonder our streets are riddled with homeless drug addicts. A guy who had no experience was named the director of that department 6 months ago. But then he leaves it immediately to become chief operations officer of the Seattle schools? 5 jobs in 2.5 years? Only vaguely related? You cannot be an expert in anything. You can't be great at your job if you just hop from one thing to another so you can get eventually his goal. Wow, I'm going to make over $200,000 tax dollars. By the way, the legislature will have to come up with more tax money for this guy's salary, too, I'm sure. Because wait till you see what the Seattle teacher salaries do to their budget. It's going to be ugly. But this is what we blow the whistle on all the time on our show. Government inefficiency could not possibly be any worse around here. And the shuffling of a bureaucrat. So now they have somebody with no great expertise as the chief operations officer of the Seattle schools. Great choice. Great choice. That is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
We're going to check the news for you. And then the president had some interesting things to say on his way to Texas this morning.